This simply should not happen in our familiar and well-studied reality. For decades, we have confidently directed the most sophisticated optical instruments into the depths of dark space. Scientists around the world sincerely expected to see a logical, understandable, and predictable picture of the infinite universe there. Instead, our ultra-sensitive orbital instruments have detected something utterly inexplicable and frankly terrifying. According to all available knowledge, the observed sector of space should be extremely stable. Astronomers have long derived precise mathematical equations to estimate the probability of detecting any anomalies. Calculations have always shown that random deviations in the behavior of massive celestial objects are practically impossible. No sudden or alarming changes were supposed to occur at all in this tranquil region of the cosmos. We had always naively assumed that the fundamental laws of physics work exactly the same way absolutely everywhere. The researchers were completely confident in the imminent and inevitable success of their long-term observations. The equipment was simply supposed to routinely confirm our old and incredibly reliable theoretical calculations. Our basic picture of the world rested on a solid foundation of hundreds of thousands of successful scientific experiments. The universe seemed to us to be an incredibly vast, yet surprisingly understandable and orderly system. Within it, billions of different galaxies and trillions of steadily rotating planetary systems coexist in harmony. According to all known laws of nature, this highly complex mechanism should function like a giant Swiss watch. We expected to see perfect symmetry and complete predictability at any vast distance accessible to us. Our technologies for continuous space observation are becoming more powerful with literally every passing year. Engineers are tirelessly creating increasingly sensitive instruments for the detailed study of the deep starry sky. The reliability of our measurement methods has never raised any serious doubts among the global scientific community. All that remained for us was to patiently gather information and carefully piece it together into a coherent picture. But time marched inexorably forward, and the final results became increasingly strange and incredibly frightening. Long years of meticulous, continuous, and very expensive observations of the cold night sky passed. At first, the minor visual discrepancies that arose seemed to everyone to be mere bad luck or a perfectly acceptable technical error. No one yet understood that our familiar model of reality had already begun to crumble irrevocably. The data we suddenly began to receive did not merely diverge slightly from our trusted theories. It completely and unequivocally refuted everything that modern academic astronomy had believed for centuries. The instruments showed a perfect, frankly terrifying void, exactly where a colossal mass was supposed to be. It was as if we were looking at a detailed photograph of a bustling metropolis from which someone had carefully erased all the buildings. Instead of the expected bright cluster of matter, we get only a strange and completely static background noise. This is nothing like a mere scratch or an error in our hypersensitive optical lenses. We find not even the slightest hint of what, according to all laws, must necessarily be there. The observed picture categorically refuses to fit into the strict framework of Newtonian physics, which is familiar and understandable to us. We are looking at vast sectors where dense clouds of cosmic dust should definitely be present. Astronomers carefully select the most reliable and repeatedly verified regions of the sky for repeated deep scanning. But the space there turns out to be unnaturally empty across absolutely all the observable spectra available to us. Such a total absence of expected massive objects contradicts the very foundations of the universe's existence. Now, this convenient old argument about frankly poor and outdated equipment no longer holds water. We see the surrounding space with unprecedented clarity, more clearly than ever before in human history. Modern neural networks are capable of flawlessly distinguishing a real cosmic object from random radiation noise in the data. And this unprecedented technological clarity only underscores the absolute physical abnormality of everything happening around us. And it was precisely at this turning point that astrophysicists began to notice something truly and irreparably ominous. This detected absolute optical void bears no resemblance whatsoever to the natural absence of matter. The collected data looks exactly as if a part of the universe is being deliberately hidden from our inquisitive observation. This bears no resemblance to the usual gravitational bending of light near supermassive black holes or quasars. Rather, it strongly resembles the work of a gigantic systemic sensor that erases entire galaxies from reality. Someone or something infinitely vast is ruthlessly blocking our access to certain sectors of the night sky. And here our current situation becomes significantly worse, darker, and more vast than we had imagined. This has ceased to be a single strange observation in one small, isolated sector of the boundless sky. We have begun to relentlessly record the same terrifying void over and over again every night of observation. It appears in a wide variety of astronomical databases in a perfectly synchronized, regular, and frighteningly mathematical manner. At first, timid researchers cautiously suggested that the phenomenon was limited to our own galaxy. We desperately tried to peer much further, beyond the familiar and well-studied Milky Way. Astronomers simultaneously directed their most powerful instruments at neighboring gigantic stellar superclusters. But the fresh results obtained from there turned out to be even more disappointing, unpredictable, and frankly, frightening. Yet this strange and impenetrable visual barrier functions flawlessly across all available wavelengths without exception. Orbiting X-ray observatories categorically detect no excess radiation from the presumed massive and hot objects. Infrared sensors do not detect even the slightest thermal signature in these artificially cold zones. Not a single photon can penetrate this dense, invisible wall of triumphant absolute nothingness. With every new and insanely expensive space mission, the terrifying scale of our problem only continues to grow. The planet's finest minds have finally and irrevocably realized that this is not a random malfunction of complex terrestrial equipment. In those distant, naive years, we very easily attributed this strange background to ordinary technical imperfection. Early astronomy was then only taking its very first tentative steps in the detailed study of deep space. Researchers considered the presence of strange, blurry dark spots to be absolutely normal for the primitive, weak optics of the time. But now, with growing, chilling horror, we realize our enormous, unforgivable, and fatal mistake of the past. This is definitely not a trivial local phenomenon that one can simply turn away from and forget forever. We are physically unable to point our telescope in a fundamentally different direction to completely avoid this effect. No matter where we look in the night sky, we inevitably come up against these artificially carved-out fragments. The cosmos surrounding us has turned out to be catastrophically incomplete, and this wild fragmentation causes genuine panic. This eerie and inexplicable erasure of valuable visual data is not confined to specific, remote corners. We are beginning to see similar, terrifying patterns with extreme clarity and distinctness in absolutely every possible direction. With every new global and in-depth scan of the starry sky, the situation grows increasingly bleak. The previously observed local anomaly no longer seems like a simple and random exception to the laws of physics. It very quickly and incredibly rapidly takes on a frighteningly universal and completely all-encompassing global character. Scientists are forced, with great alarm, to conclude that there is a fundamental flaw in the structure of the universe. This cruel and absolutely insurmountable rule operates absolutely everywhere without the slightest leniency or geographical exceptions. The universe seems to have suddenly become covered with enormous blind spots of information that are physically impossible to ignore. It turns out that we are constantly living in a universe that seems to be deliberately and very skillfully concealing its true scale. The three-dimensional space we observe may be nothing more than a pale, flat shadow of something unimaginably vast. Interstellar space itself, for reasons completely unknown to us, conceals vast layers of critically important information. These bold hypotheses compel us to seriously and with growing anxiety reflect on our true place in this world. The true physical and mathematical scale of this cosmic anomaly simply defies comprehension by the human mind. This is most certainly not a trivial invisible dust wall, built by some caring entity around our tiny system. Ordinary starlight simply fades away or is deliberately and harshly blocked on its direct path to our ultra-precise lenses. As a result, every observer finds themselves forever and hopelessly trapped within their own incomplete information bubble. Fresh data sets from the latest and incredibly powerful orbital telescopes only confirm our worst fears. The instruments detect not even the faintest background glow where hundreds of trillions of massive stars should be shining. The eerie anomaly of light suppression itself has a surprisingly strict and mathematically perfect structure. With growing primal dread, physicists see artificial and frighteningly regular patterns in these graphs. If our time-tested mathematical models do not work there, then they are fundamentally incorrect absolutely everywhere. The basic laws of classical physics must be exactly the same in all the most remote corners of the universe. The slightest error in the basic calculations over gigantic distances means a fatal and critical error in all of our science. This no longer concerns only the very distant and utterly unreachable beautiful gas nebulae. This directly and extremely strictly applies to the very place where all of us are right now. Our incredibly cozy and small solar system is undoubtedly subject to the very same strict universal rules. We ourselves are a tiny, vulnerable, and integral part of this very strange, half-broken coordinate system. Such a terrifying discovery completely and instantly shatters our long-held, complacent sense of basic planetary security. In the dim light of these incredibly grim and devastating discoveries, the most terrifying question of all arises. Scientists are desperately working around the clock to understand the true underlying motives behind the workings of such a grandiose cosmic eraser. If this absolute and chilling optical void is artificially maintained, then for what purpose exactly is this happening? Who or what incredibly vast entity needed to expend colossal energy to conceal vast sectors of space? Perhaps some unimaginably ancient and terrifyingly powerful forces are sincerely trying to protect us from something terrible. This invisible void may serve as an incredibly reliable shield against merciless and destructive primordial threats. We sincerely and very naively planned to leave our comfortable earthly cradle once and for all in triumph. Great science fiction writers created beautiful utopian worlds of universal galactic and technological prosperity. Now, all these beautiful and bright dreams seem incredibly foolish and deadly dangerous for our continued survival. We are absolutely and completely unaware of the harsh, very cruel rules by which this invisible, hidden cosmos exists. Any bold attempt to step beyond the rigid boundaries of our permitted field of vision could prove fatal for us. We find ourselves forever locked within reality, whose invisible boundaries have been established entirely without our consent. The most terrifying thing about this entire unfolding story is the realization of our total and utterly hopeless scientific ignorance. The real fundamental problem lies not at all in the fact that vast swaths of the living universe are simply invisible. The real problem is precisely that we have absolutely no understanding of the basic mechanism behind this global optical concealment. we have suddenly found ourselves face to face with an utterly alien, completely unknowable, and terrifying physical phenomenon. Human logic, as we know it, simply refuses to function reliably on such incredible and unimaginable scales. Our modern academic science has neither suitable mathematical formulas nor complex physical theories to explain it. The planet's brightest minds sit for days on end without sleep at overheated supercomputers in utterly fruitless attempts to find an answer. Any bold hypothesis they propose is immediately shattered to pieces by new anomalous data from orbital stations. Our cutting-edge Earth-based science has proven too primitive and limited to solve such a grand cosmic problem. It seems we have finally and forever hit the impenetrable ceiling of our own biological intelligence. The cruel paradox of the current situation lies precisely in the fact that the better we look, the less we understand. Every new batch of data received from space only confuses us even more and spawns new unsolvable questions. We are constantly finding strange anomalies that directly and blatantly contradict the basic laws of conservation of cosmic energy. Cosmology has incredibly quickly transformed from a precise physical science into a collection of terrifying, illogical mysteries. According to this highly controversial yet popular theory, we perceive only what we can safely process. All other diversity is ruthlessly and incredibly quickly filtered out by our subconscious as deadly and mind-boggling noise. We may very well be living in a densely populated and teeming universe without the necessary senses to perceive it. This incredibly profound philosophical idea frightens classical, rigorous physicists no less than a routine data loss. Since Earth-based science cannot logically explain the void, astronomers are reluctant to turn to darker ideas. Researchers have begun actively seeking explanations in the concepts of cosmic paranoid sociology and harsh survival. Nature on our Earth is brimming with brutal examples of how weak prey blend into their surroundings. If a predator is too strong and dangerous, the best and only effective strategy is to become completely invisible. In our wild nature, the forest suddenly and completely empties only when a deadly and hungry threat appears nearby. All living forest inhabitants instinctively and instantly freeze, so as not to accidentally give themselves away with a sound. And now, our vast and cold universe closely resembles precisely such an ocean, frozen in primal terror. This unnatural absence of entire stellar structures looks like a global and highly sophisticated cosmic camouflage. In the boundless, lifeless cosmos, extremely fierce competition for resources is absolutely inevitable at any stage of a species' development. This uncompromising and eternal struggle for survival takes the most radical and incredibly sophisticated forms of concealment. Highly developed spacefaring species deliberately and with great technical skill jam all optical and radio frequency sectors around themselves. They build these gigantic and energy-intensive technological shields to reliably conceal their exact location in the darkness. No one wants to become an easy and highly visible target for a far more aggressive neighbor. And this harsh, universal rule makes our own position critically dangerous and frankly foolish to the point of madness. Humanity still completely and utterly lacks the technology to camouflage even a single tiny planet. For an entire tumultuous century, we have behaved like incredibly naive, noisy, and carefree little children. Our young civilization has only just ventured into space and immediately began blasting bright radar signals in all directions. We have not given a single thought to the possible and catastrophic consequences for us of such incredibly foolish informational openness. If these invisible and ruthless hunters truly exist, they obtained our exact coordinates a very long time ago. All that remains for us is to wonder, with growing primal terror, how much time they will need to prepare a devastating strike. We didn't just grossly violate the main basic rule of survival in this harsh, dark, and incredibly cold cosmos. We did so with pride, voluntarily depriving ourselves of our last chance to hide in a safe blind spot. But there is also a completely different, even more alarming and humiliating interpretation of our inexplicable cosmic observations. What if this all-encompassing and unnatural cosmic blindness is directed exclusively against us, against Earth? Scientists are very reluctant to seriously discuss the so-called hypothesis of a strict informational and visual galactic isolator. Perhaps this incredible blocking filter was installed not at all to protect the universe from external threats. What if someone unimaginably old, far more ancient and intelligent, applied exactly the same cold logic to us? To ancient galactic supercivilizations, our aggressive humanity may represent a most dangerous virus of chaos and destruction. They simply watch, with incredible composure and detachment, to see how quickly we can destroy ourselves. Our brief history on Earth is brimming with examples of endless brutal wars and massive technological catastrophes. We have not in the least learned to live in a sustainable and stable world on our own tiny planet. Each new, ambitious generation of ours tirelessly devises ever more sophisticated and terrifying methods of total annihilation. To any truly wise and ancient civilization, we appear as an exceptionally aggressive and extremely unpredictable threat. Who in their right mind would want to let aggressive savages with nuclear warheads into their orderly stellar home? This is an incredibly grand existence, to which we are categorically and permanently barred from even a single light-year's distance. This incredibly harsh and sobering thought deals a crushing blow to our collective and inflated human pride. In the true scale of this global galactic quarantine, we turn out to be nothing more than a very minor and annoying problem. They don't even try to control us, either openly or covertly. They simply ignore us with incredible coldness and technical precision. Perhaps our beautiful planet is not a unique cradle of intelligence at all, but a strict, isolated, and universally forgotten reservation. Invisible overseers are simply waiting endlessly for the natural or artificial conclusion of our internal planetary crisis. We have come very, very close to the most radical, terrifying hypothesis of all possible theoretical scenarios. What if the very basic and fundamental structure of our reality is not truly dense and physical at all? Perhaps these vast blind spots and the missing stellar matter are not an external quarantine shield erected by aliens at all. Scientists are beginning to discuss, with great alarm, a completely different, purely informational and digital nature of our universe. This could very well be a simple systemic limitation of the computational environment in which we all constantly reside. We may be living, completely unconsciously, within an incredibly complex, mathematically perfect, and artificially created simulation. This crazy theory has a very rigorous, frighteningly well-founded quantum and physical basis. The computing power we know of is inevitably and inexorably growing exponentially with each passing year. It is quite possible that an unknown supercivilization created a completely virtual copy of the entire universe a very long time ago. And this astonishing yet terrifying fact flawlessly and mathematically explains absolutely all of our astronomical paradoxes of emptiness. We have always naively been accustomed to thinking of space as a vast, solid, and tangible material object surrounding our world. But these gigantic empty optical zones look completely unnatural for a chaotic and wild material space. The abrupt and geometrically precise disappearance of entire galaxy clusters operates with the precision of a well-tuned software algorithm. Our natural world is simply physically incapable of creating such smooth, graphic, and uncompromising visual barriers. The suppression of massive amounts of visual information looks like a routine attempt by a complex system to conserve its computational resources. The computer simply stops processing ultra-distant objects in detail, as they are of no current importance to us. This truly terrifying thought completely and forever destroys any bright concept of our highest human purpose. Our greatest scientific discoveries and incredibly sincere emotional suffering are simply lines of soulless code. We are desperately and frantically fighting for our survival inside a machine that could simply be unplugged at any moment. Here, our collective existential horror reaches its absolute, insurmountable, and utterly inconsolable limit. None of our greatest achievements has the slightest meaning if tomorrow they decide to routinely reboot the server. We are absolutely and hopelessly delusional in our desire to know this fake mathematical reality around us in detail and depth. The ringing silence of the ether is by no means a mystery of deep space, but simply a rigid structural limitation of the basic matrix. We are locked up hostages of an illusory reality that is not even truly tangible or alive. We have come face to face with the most terrifying and precipitous edge of our limited understanding of the surrounding universe. All of our most recent and precise astrophysical observations inexorably lead to incredibly depressing and grim conclusions. Scientists around the world are desperately working around the clock to find even a shred of hope in this total absence of data. The essence of this chilling phenomenon remains absolutely unchanging, unsolvable, and alarming for our entire species. We are incredibly, catastrophically small and utterly powerless before this ominous, insurmountable cosmic optical void. All that remains for us is to stand in absolute silence and with utter resignation before this cold barrier of absolute unknown. For many years, our earthly science generously promised us an exceptionally bright, triumphant, and joyful interstellar future. We were told very convincingly and vividly that we would surely become the full-fledged and great masters of space. Absolute and total ignorance has long been our curse, but it is also our greatest shield. As long as the endless dark cosmos reliably hides its true secrets, we can calmly continue our small earthly lives. Complete ignorance has turned out to be a far more comfortable and therapeutic state for our fragile human psyche. We all instinctively and gladly hide behind this wall of sudden blindness to global and insoluble existential catastrophes. But our basic, evolutionarily ingrained human curiosity is physically impossible to simply switch off forever. We will inevitably continue to stubbornly drill into this ominous black void every clear night with our radio waves. Astronomers will endlessly and stubbornly search for the slightest saving or destructive cracks in this incredibly sturdy barrier. Our incredibly young biological species is evolutionarily hardwired to continuously seek out the hidden cosmic truth. We will continue our observations with extreme persistence, pushing the very limits of all our current technical capabilities. Even if this incredibly bitter final truth directly threatens us with complete and inevitable physical annihilation, it is precisely this utterly unquenchable curiosity that once compelled us to come down from the trees and build the first orbital telescopes. We are simply genetically incapable of stopping halfway to unraveling the greatest mysteries of the universe. But until then, we remain completely, absolutely, and hopelessly alone in our artificially confined planetary system. Our incredibly tiny blue planet flies through dead, cold space, tightly surrounded by a wall of emptiness. This constantly oppressive and maddening uncertainty is the heaviest and most unbearable burden on our minds. And with every passing decade, this invisible psychological burden only grows heavier and more unbearable. Think about this frightening and sobering fact the next time you look at the beautiful shining stars at night. You will never again in your life see there the familiar, friendly, and utterly welcoming open fairy tale world. You will see, with crystal clarity, a gigantic stage set that deliberately and very cruelly hides the true reality from us. We stand before the greatest and darkest mystery, capable at any moment of erasing our very existence forever.